I began to feel neglected and unappreciated. Don't get me wrong. My husband, Mark, was always sweet and caring, but there was something missing. I found myself yearning for a bit of that bad boy edge that Mark just didn't possess. He was too gentle, too predictable, too safe. Our marriage started out perfectly, like a scene from a romantic movie. We were the ideal couple, deeply in love and seemingly inseparable. But as the years rolled on, something inside me began to stir. It was a restless feeling, an itch I couldn't quite scratch. Mark, bless his heart, never saw it coming. He continued to shower me with affection, leaving little love notes around the house and planning romantic weekend getaways. His gestures were sweet, but they left me wanting more, something different, something exciting. I'd often catch myself daydreaming about the old days, the days before I was someone's wife. Back then, I was a bit of a wild child, always up for adventure and never one to shy away from a little mischief. It was that side of me that I felt slipping away, buried beneath the weight of responsibility and routine. The cracks in our relationship began to show. Most of it was my doing, I admit. I grew bored, restless, and numb to the routine of our marriage. The sparks that once ignited our love had dwindled to mere embers, and it was eating at me from the inside. I'd often find myself staring at the mirror, wondering who I had become. I missed the girl who used to dance in the rain, the one who laughed too loudly and kissed too passionately. She was fading away, lost in the monotony of our daily lives. Mark, oblivious to my internal turmoil, kept trying to make things right. He'd bring me my favorite flowers, cook my favorite meals, and whisper sweet nothings in my ear. And each time, it would sting a little more, because it felt like he was trying to fix something that had already shattered. So, there I was, caught between the loving husband who adored me and the yearning for something more. I couldn't shake the feeling that life was slipping through my fingers, and I was desperate to recapture a glimmer of that wild spirit I used to be. But little did I know that my quest for excitement would lead me down a treacherous path, one that would threaten to unravel everything Mark and I had built together. The choices I was about to make would push our marriage to the brink and forever change the course of our lives. It all started innocently enough when I became friends with a colleague, Alex. He was the kind of guy who exuded confidence and had an air of mystery about him. The kind of guy who was as different from Mark as night and day. Alex had a way of making me feel heard and understood, something I hadn't felt in a long time. As I shared my frustrations about my marriage, he listened, nodding sympathetically, and offering his own insights. His presence became a comfort, a reprieve from the growing tension at home. We'd grab lunch together, talk about our shared interests, and sometimes linger in the office long after everyone else had gone home. I couldn't deny the connection that was forming between us, but I convinced myself it was harmless, just two friends sharing their thoughts. But the truth was, I was teetering on the edge of an emotional affair, and I knew it. My heart raced when Alex was around, and I found myself thinking about him even when I was with Mark. It was an intoxicating feeling, the thrill of being understood and appreciated in a way I hadn't felt in years. One fateful day, after a particularly heated argument with Mark, I found myself seeking solace in the one person who seemed to understand me better than anyone else. We were alone in the office, the late afternoon sun casting long shadows, and the tension between us was palpable. As I looked into Alex's eyes, the desire for something more, something different, became irresistible. In that moment of weakness, I leaned in, and our lips met in a forbidden kiss. It was like a spark ignited, and a fire raged within me, consuming my guilt and inhibitions. The kiss was passionate and electric, and for a moment, I forgot everything else. The promises I had made to Mark, the life we had built together, and the consequences of my actions. All that mattered was the taste of forbidden fruit on my lips and the rush of excitement coursing through my veins. But as quickly as it had started, it ended. Reality crashed down on me, and I pulled away, my heart pounding in my chest. I looked into Alex's eyes, and I saw the same mixture of desire and guilt mirrored there. We both knew we had crossed a line that could never be uncrossed. That kiss would become the catalyst for a series of events that would unravel our lives in ways we never could have imagined. It was the beginning of a dangerous and tumultuous journey, one that would test the limits of love, loyalty, and desire. And as I stood there, trembling and breathless, I had no idea just how far down that path I was willing to go. It was the kiss that ignited the fire, setting our lives on a perilous course. That forbidden kiss between Alex and me was the spark that led to a passionate affair, one filled with desire, guilt, and a darkness we both craved. We were like two fugitives, hiding our affair from Mark and our unsuspecting friends. The thrill of sneaking around, the secrecy, it all added an intoxicating edge to our encounters. I found myself crossing boundaries I had never thought possible, doing things I had never allowed my husband, Mark, to even consider. Alex and I were drawn together like magnets, our chemistry undeniable. It was a whirlwind of stolen moments and whispered confessions. We'd meet in out-of-the-way places, sharing stolen glances and heated caresses. The secrecy of it all fueled our passion, making every encounter feel like a guilty pleasure. But as much as I reveled in the illicit thrill, the weight of my betrayal began to bear down on me. Mark was no fool. He started to suspect something was amiss. His once trusting eyes now held a hint of doubt, and his questions grew more pointed. One night, as we lay in bed, the tension between us became unbearable. Mark turned to me, his voice trembling with a mixture of hurt and suspicion. "Is there something you're not telling me?" he asked, his eyes searching mine for answers. I knew I had a choice to make, confess or continue down the treacherous path of deceit. In that moment, my desperation to keep our affair hidden won out. I looked into Mark's eyes and lied, swearing that everything was fine, that he was the only one in my heart. The relief that washed over me was fleeting, overshadowed by the guilt that had settled in the pit of my stomach. I had just pushed Mark further away, deepening the chasm between us. And yet, the allure of my secret life with Alex was too strong to resist. As the days turned into weeks and the affair continued, I found myself spiraling deeper into a web of deception. The lies became easier, the stolen moments more addictive, and the danger more exhilarating. I was trapped in a double life, torn between the man I had once loved and the forbidden passion that threatened to consume me. Little did I know that the walls of my carefully constructed world were closing in, and the consequences of my actions were closing in on me. The choices I was making would lead to a reckoning I couldn't avoid, and the price of my deceit was about to become painfully clear. The situation between Mark and me was spiraling out of control. Our once loving marriage had become a battleground of unspoken tension and simmering resentment. It was as if we were two strangers sharing a house, our connection fading with each passing day. One fateful evening, I had slipped out to meet Alex. The thrill of our affair still held its intoxicating grip on me, and I couldn't resist the lure of his forbidden touch. We rendezvoused at a discreet spot, our hearts racing with a mixture of excitement and guilt. But fate had other plans that night, and as we clung to the shadows, Mark appeared like a ghost in the darkness. He had followed me, his face a mask of heartbreak and anger. In that moment, I knew our secret was about to unravel, and the consequences would be devastating. Tears welled up in Mark's eyes as he confronted us, his voice trembling with a mixture of betrayal and despair. The truth hung in the air like a heavy weight, and there was no denying the affair any longer. I felt a sinking sensation in my chest as I watched the man I had once loved crumble before me. But despite the pain, Mark kept our secret, a silent promise to shield me from public shame. He simply turned and walked away, leaving me alone with Alex, the weight of his unspoken forgiveness heavy on my shoulders. In the days that followed, Mark requested a break in our marriage, a chance to step back and reflect on the shattered pieces of our relationship. It was a painful decision, but one that was necessary for both of us. I knew that I had pushed him to his breaking point, and I couldn't blame him for needing space to heal. During that time apart, I was forced to confront the wreckage of my actions. The guilt and regret gnawed at me like a relentless beast, and I was left with nothing but my own thoughts as company. It was a dark and lonely period in my life, a time of reckoning for the choices I had made. As I watched our marriage hang by a thread, I couldn't help but wonder if it was too late to salvage what we had once shared. The pause in our marriage was a chance for reflection, a chance to determine if love could overcome betrayal. But deep down, I feared that I had pushed Mark too far, and our love might never recover from the wounds I had inflicted. If you're enjoying the content and looking for more, we've got a simple request. Give us a thumbs up by clicking that like button and hit subscribe to stay tuned for all the exciting updates coming your way. Why, you ask? Well, we're here to share knowledge, provide entertainment, and engage in meaningful conversations with you. By hitting that like button, you're letting us know you appreciate what we do. And subscribing? That's your golden ticket to never missing out on the latest, greatest, and most informative content. So, what are you waiting for? Click that like button, hit subscribe, and join our fantastic community. Together, we'll explore, learn, and have a blast doing it. thanks for your support. Realization can hit you like a freight train, and for me, it came crashing down with the force of a hurricane. I couldn't deny the destruction I had caused, the lies, the deceit, the betrayal. It had taken its toll on me, on Mark, on everything we had once held dear. In the midst of our marriage's turmoil, I had an epiphany, a moment of clarity where I saw the wreckage of my actions in all its ugly truth. I knew I had to make a choice, to break free from the chains that bound me to Alex, even if it felt like tearing out a piece of my own soul. It was a decision born out of guilt and the desperate desire to salvage what remained of my marriage. Mark had shown me more forgiveness than I deserved, and I couldn't keep pushing the boundaries of his patience. Deep down, I still longed for Alex, for the passion and excitement he brought into my life, but I was afraid of losing everything I had built with Mark. So, I made the painful decision to end my affair with Alex, to sever the ties that bound us together. It was a choice that tore at my heart, and even as I walked away, I couldn't shake the feeling that a part of me would always belong to him. But Alex wasn't ready to let me go, and to be honest, neither was I. Our connection was like an unbreakable bond, an addiction that refused to release its grip. We both craved each other's presence, the allure of the forbidden, and the intoxicating rush of passion we shared. So, I had to take drastic measures to ensure our complete separation. I changed my phone number, blocked his emails, and avoided any place where I knew he might be. It was a painful process, like tearing off a band-aid from a wound that refused to heal. The days turned into weeks, and the ache of our separation never left me. I was haunted by the memories of our stolen moments, the whispered confessions, and the electrifying touch of his hands. It was a battle of wills, a test of my determination to make amends for the damage I had done. But despite the pain, I knew I had made the right choice. My marriage with Mark was worth fighting for, and I couldn't let my selfish desires destroy what remained of our love. The road ahead was uncertain, filled with challenges and heartache, but I was willing to do whatever it took to repair the damage I had inflicted on the man I had once vowed to love and cherish. I had reached the breaking point, and my marriage hung in the balance, teetering on the edge of oblivion. The choice was clear. Beg Mark for another chance or watch everything we had built together crumble into dust. I pleaded with Mark, my voice trembling with desperation, to give us another shot, to save our marriage from the abyss that yawned before us. I poured out my regrets, my remorse, and my promises to change, to be the wife he deserved. I believed, with every fiber of my being, that our love could overcome the storm that had battered us. But Mark's response shattered my hopes. He looked at me with a mixture of sadness and resignation, and he uttered those words that cut through me like a knife. I can't, not anymore. The finality in his voice echoed in my ears, and I felt as though I had been punched in the gut. In that moment, the reality of our broken marriage crashed down on me like a tidal wave. The love we had once shared, the promises we had made, they all seemed like distant memories, fading into oblivion. I was left with a hollow ache in my chest, the realization that I had pushed the man I loved to the point of no return. I couldn't fathom a life without Mark, and the pain of losing him was unbearable. But it was a pain I had brought upon myself, a consequence of my own actions and choices. I was drowning in a sea of regret, haunted by the mistakes I had made, and the guilt gnawed at my soul. In a desperate bid to salvage what remained of our relationship, I made the difficult decision to cut all ties with Alex, even at work. It was a painful separation, like tearing a part of myself away. The office, once a place of stolen glances and secret meetings, now became a battleground of avoidance and awkwardness. But despite my efforts to distance myself from Alex, the temptation still lingered like a shadow. The memory of his touch, the intoxicating allure of our stolen moments, they haunted me, taunting me with the forbidden fruit I had tasted but could never have again. I was stuck in a whirlpool of despair, trapped between the regret of my past actions and the uncertain future that awaited me. The road ahead was bleak and uncertain, and I couldn't help but wonder if it was too late to rebuild what I had shattered. As I grappled with the wreckage of my marriage and the heartache of my failed affair with Alex, life continued its relentless march forward. Time, they say, waits for no one, and it certainly didn't pause for my regrets and struggles. In the midst of my turmoil, Alex made a significant move. He left his job and relocated to another city, effectively putting physical distance between us. It was as if he had finally accepted the reality of our separation, or perhaps he had decided to move on with his life. While I wrestled with the guilt and pain of my actions, Mark made a surprising move of his own. He reconnected with Sophie, his childhood love. Their friendship, which had remained dormant for years, quickly reignited into a passionate romantic relationship. I watched in stunned amazement as their bond deepened and their connection grew stronger by the day. It was as if Mark had found a lifeline, a source of happiness and fulfillment that had eluded him during our tumultuous marriage. Their love story unfolded before my eyes, a bittersweet reminder of what we had once shared. I couldn't help but feel a pang of jealousy and regret as I witnessed the undeniable chemistry between them, the laughter, and the tender moments that Mark and I had once shared. The irony of the situation was not lost on me. While I had been consumed by my affair with Alex, Mark had found solace in the arms of his childhood love. It was a twist of fate that highlighted the complexity of human relationships, the unpredictable nature of love, and the consequences of our choices. As I continued to grapple with my own demons, I couldn't help but wonder if Mark's newfound happiness was a sign that he had moved on, that our marriage was beyond repair. The doubt gnawed at me, but I couldn't blame him for seeking happiness after the pain I had caused. Life had taken us down divergent paths, and the future remained uncertain. I was left with the daunting task of picking up the pieces of my shattered life, facing the consequences of my actions, and searching for a way to heal the wounds I had inflicted on both Mark and myself. The chapters of our lives had taken unexpected turns, and the story was far from over. It was a tale of love, loss, and redemption, a journey that would test the limits of our resilience and the strength of our hearts. Life can change in the blink of an eye, and sometimes, you're left reeling from the unexpected blows it delivers. The latest blow for me was Mark's decision, a decision that would ultimately seal the fate of our once promising marriage. After rekindling his relationship with Sophie, Mark made the painful choice to leave me for good. It felt like a sledgehammer to the chest, the realization that our love story had come to a bitter end. The man I had married, the one I had built a life with, had chosen a new path, leaving me behind in the ruins of our marriage. I was in shock, a dazed and devastated witness to the crumbling of our life together. It was a whirlwind of emotions, betrayal, sadness, anger, and a profound sense of loss. I couldn't help but replay the events that had led us here, the choices I had made, and the consequences that now stared me in the face. Mark and Sophie wasted no time in moving forward with their newfound love. They built a life together, leaving behind the memories of our marriage, like discarded relics of the past. It was a bitter pill to swallow, watching them forge ahead while I remained mired in the wreckage of my own making. The solitude that followed was deafening, a stark reminder of the emptiness that had settled in the wake of our separation. I was left to confront the reality of the end of our relationship, to grapple with the silence that had replaced the once familiar sounds of our life together. The pain and regret that washed over me were suffocating, like an unrelenting storm that refused to let up. I had brought this upon myself, and the weight of my choices pressed down on me like a crushing burden. The consequences of my actions had finally caught up with me, and there was no escaping the truth. I couldn't help but wonder what might have been, how different our lives could have been if I had made different choices. The what-ifs and regrets swirled around me, a never-ending cycle of self-recrimination. I had lost the man I loved, the life we had built, and the future we had envisioned. But even in the depths of my despair, I knew I had to find a way to move forward. The road ahead was uncertain, fraught with pain and remorse, but it was a journey I had to undertake. I had to confront the consequences of my past actions, make amends where I could, and find a way to rebuild my life from the ashes of our shattered marriage. The chapters of our love story had come to an end, but the story of my own redemption was just beginning. It was a daunting path, one that would test the limits of my strength and resilience. But it was a path I had to walk, a chance to find forgiveness and healing, and to make amends for the mistakes that had brought me to this